Speak up.
I'm just waiting for everybody.
What are you waiting for?
Okay. I'm just trying to gather my shock at your behavior here. How many times has Mr. Shelton's been on the council for several years now? He knows how to work the voting machine. I see him vote no, and then the lights went blank. I'm asking that the vote be recorded as it was initially submitted, and it was 2 and 2.
Keep going. This is oral communications. This isn't an action item, so go ahead. If you're
Did I
done,
missee it?
Are you done?
Did I missee it?
Barry, we don't do that here at oral communications. You know that. So if you're done, leave the lectern and let somebody else have another chance at it.
No, I'm not really done. My concern here is not only that Mr. Shelton changed his vote before the public and that you're recording it as changed when that's not the way that it was cast, but my concern is much broader than that. My concern is that you, at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Ward spoke inclusively of the need to address arts as an economic development driver, for instance, which many in the LGBT and allied community are working on and have been working on for over a year in the Art Walk, which is driving business downtown. You mentioned that you went to the conference and you heard about how effective this could be. You specifically mentioned showing local films, and I came here prepared to invite you to just such a local film as evidence that the city, and in particular the LGBT community, is working on this exact same issue that you feel is important. Yet, for some reason that you're afraid to stand up here and say in public, you feel that apparently that a proclamation is not worth the human dignity of the people that you're constituents of. And I have a problem with this. The reason is because this proclamation before you that you voted 2 to 2, but then changed the vote to 3 to 1, is a matter of human dignity, and in that regard, it's no different than the other 3 proclamations that you passed tonight. The proclamation that you read earlier that you passed last week, it singles out nobody differently than any other proclamation. The first one was about teens and reading week. The second one was, hold on a second, let me find it. So there was Teen Reading Week. The second one you said, Mr. Ward said cancer affects everybody. That's not true. Fortunate, and it's unfortunate for those that it does affect, but it does not affect everybody equally. It's a great program, and I think they should have the proclamation, but let's face facts. Cancer does not affect anybody, and so it does separate people out on a non-protected basis on their medical history, whereas this proclamation that you've declined only seeks respect and recognition of people who work equally hard in the community for equally zero pay as the volunteers for Relay for Life. Okay, Friends for Libraries, same thing. It's a small group worthy of a proclamation, don't get me wrong, but it is a small group. I was personally meeting with Ms. Cervantes at the library just this week and discussing the Friends of the Library and their strengths and their limitations. It is a small group. Other people are interested in helping the library just as well. Now, as probably one of their biggest customers of the Friends of the Library, I do think they do a worthy job, and the library is very worthy of their support. But for you to say and to vote on those 3 proclamations tonight and the one from last week, which was, let me just remind you of that one, domestic violence, also does not affect everybody. And the people who received the proclamation, I don't know if they're still here, they're providing support and services. They're not hopefully committing the domestic violence. Again, an important role and required role in our community, fully worthy of a proclamation, but no more inclusive than the one that you deny on this reason. The only reason why this one is different in your eyes, as Councilman Hamilton said publicly in the newspaper, and I don't think he's denied that he was quoted correctly because he repeated it on Facebook of his own free will. The only issue here is your perception of the of the orientation of the people who are to receive the proclamation. Now, this group, you heard approximately 10 people tonight speak in favor of this proclamation, which has never been before the council before. You heard only 2 people moderately object to it. And I say moderately because in the past, when the previous Pride proclamation came, there was a very vocal and assertive crowd that objected to it. That did not happen today. In fact, it's my understanding that some of that very vocal crowd, Kenneth Avalo, was here in town today, and yet he didn't come to the meeting. Maybe I don't know why, but maybe he didn't think it was as important as before. Yet, you still find the objection. Without stating it, we can only assume what you've said in the past, that it's about some sort of exclusiveness that's no different than any other proclamation, or it's about your religious beliefs, which is what was discussed before in council in at least 3 public hearings, and arguably in the budget hearing on June 11th when Mr. Ward made his first motion to start this process of rescinding a proclamation. Now, when Greg's ready, I'll keep talking.
Greg does not have to listen to you.
Okay.
No, as a matter of fact, I was going to ask for a point of order.
Okay. So this is my concern.
Hold on one second. We have a point of order. What?
Oh, just for a convenience break, unless Mr. Kaplan's going to wrap it up.
He's asking for time off for a little bit unless
You're going to
you'd
wrap
like
it
to
up.
wrap up what you have to say.
Well, I heard the mayor say,
Are you trying to filibuster the meeting?
no, I heard the mayor say that we would have time before. I graciously didn't take advantage of that earlier.
You have time. We've
Okay.
heard your message. You're starting to roll with the same thing, so
Walk around the
we
tree.
understand what your opinion is on this, and I would just appreciate if you'd kindly wrap it up.
To summarize, my concern is that you've shown that you've learned nothing over the last 4 months to do the business of the city, which is a phrase I've heard tossed out by several people, including Councilmember Garolo, who's not here tonight. This is taking up more and more time. It would have been very simple just to pass this along, and then the business of the city would become the business of the city. The world would have said, ha, they've learned something. They don't want to continue this. The economic development that has come to a screeching halt and slowed down, the phone calls would start to come in again. Jobs would start to be created. And Porterville would stop seeming like the laughing stock of the United States simply because 3 men on city council who feel it's their responsibility, unlike any place else in the United States, to continually block routine business on the basis of orientation, which is a protected class.
30 seconds.
My question.
2 potato, 3 potato, 4 potato.
What, Pete?
I believe you said earlier that there wasn't a time limit.
I also have the option to stop it when it needs to be stopped.
I think he's been more than indulgent.
I'm giving you 30 more seconds. Go ahead.
My question for you is to really consider what you're doing, consider the holes in the process that you just created. They still are not going to work, and you're still on record as desiring to block anything that has to do with your constituents who happen to be gay or gay friendly at every turn. This is just shameful, and it's wrong, and you can do the right thing at any time by passing this vote the way it was recorded, the way everybody saw it. It was 2-2. It should be recorded that way.
Thank you, but for the record, councilman can change his vote at any time, correct? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne Marie Wagstaff, 382 North Indiana Street. I would like to strongly disagree with you with the idea that this proclamation does not affect every citizen of this community. Either gays and lesbians, bisexuals and transgenders come out, or we remain in silence and invisibility. Either way, it affects everyone in this community. Many people in this community live in silence and invisibility out of fear of discrimination, which is illegal, but nonetheless they have to fear because of the bigotry in this town. Many people leave this community every year, which affects its economy, which affects its educational status. Every single person in this room knows gays and lesbians, and actually knows far many of them than they know, because they do not come out because of the bigotry in this community. I think you need to really rethink your logic in terms of how much coming out affects this entire community. Families, schools, churches. Some of the people who are most affected by the bigotry in this community are the Christians, the LGBT Christians, who are excluded from churches, who are denounced in public, who are discriminated against by their city council, who are asked to remain in silence or invisible by acts like this. You don't think it doesn't have an effect? You don't think that gay teenagers and lesbian teenagers don't know what you're doing tonight? You don't think that that affects everybody in this community? You don't think that when young people don't feel they have the right to express who they are, that doesn't affect everybody? I think you need to rethink that. And I think you need to think about that long and hard. But I will tell you that one thing in Porterville has already changed, and that is the number of people who are coming out. As I've mentioned before, I am the faculty advisor, or one of the faculty advisors for the Pride Club on campus. I want you to know that every time you do something like this, the next week we get more people at those meetings. And you know, not all of them are lesbian, gays, transgender, or bisexual. Many of them are heterosexual who just can't take it anymore. They don't want their city to look like this. They don't believe that that's who Porterville is, and I don't either. And I am ashamed to have my city representative stand before this city hall and tell us that coming out, lesbian, gays coming out, doesn't affect everybody in this community. What community are you living in?
Anyone else?
Brock Neely, address on record. You know, we were in the New York Times.
Ooh.
Last time somebody in my family was in the New York Times, so my mom and dad got married. My dad was a fire engineer at Strathmore, a volunteer, got married, the fire alarm went off, he went in his tux. The next time is because of bigotry. How much do you think it costs the taxpayers every time a gay kid commits suicide? Somebody has to pay for those emergency services. Somebody has to pay for the autopsy. It's because of bigotry and idiocy like you guys portray here that cause these kids to commit suicide, because they feel they aren't worthy, because they are told they're not worthy by churches. I know a gentleman that was told when he came out, I don't want to ever see you again, by the minister of the church he went to. Think hard of what you're doing. Think hard of all the deaths you're causing.
Attacked. For whatever reason tonight, your sound enhancement devices have not been working. I've noticed several side conversations, one involving Councilmember Shelton, one involving Councilmember Ward, and for some reason, the mics weren't picking those up. Mr. Mayor, I'd strongly suggest that you direct your council members to speak directly into their microphones or resign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Connie Wilson. I spoke earlier from Porterville. I would like to add that the reason that I speak on behalf of the proclamation for National Coming Out today was not only for myself, but if we don't advocate for our kids, no one else will. A few weeks ago, I was in the ER with my son who tried to commit suicide, not because he's gay, but because he doesn't feel he belongs due to his disabilities. Guess what? Children daily are committing suicide for not feeling like they belong, gay or not. If we don't do something to show our kids that it's okay to be different, then we have failed as adults. Kids will continue to commit suicide when narrow-minded people continue to tell them that they are not normal and continue to indirectly make fun of them and not support them. For those people who hide behind their religion, they might as well start getting the caskets ready, because those who condemn us as LGBT are causing the senseless deaths. Those who don't like and don't approve of us love, but only conditionally. Have at least the capacity to love your children unconditionally before it's too late. Do this for the kids.
Anyone else?
Teresa Carpenter, my address is on record. I don't like, I can't even look at you guys. I don't like that you don't feel that it affects everybody. My sister came out and was suicidal. It affected me. It affected those 3 kids over there. Now I stand by her side. She was not able to be here because she had to leave town. But it does affect everybody. Even the people that are not in favor of it, it's affecting them. And coming out, it isn't about the sex. You're not making it okay for somebody to come out in a butterfly outfit and rainbow wigs. You're just telling people it's okay to be who you are. That's it. And in coming out, watching both my sisters come out, it was never about the sex. They are my sisters. It was about having to make peace with themselves. My sister understanding that God still loves her because she couldn't see that because of the people who said, you shouldn't be who you are. You're unworthy of life. You're worthy of death. And you've heard people say that. I've heard people say that in this very room. This is something that affects not just gays. It affects straight people. It affects mothers, grandmothers, children. My kid's great-great-grandmother would be here if she wasn't at home with leukemia. And her cancer affects us. But it just kind of makes me even feel worse that you would be okay, like, telling her it's okay to have cancer, but then making both my sisters feel like, well, yeah, you having sex with girls, you're not okay who you are. You know what? It was never about the sex. It's not about sex. It's about being who you are. And that's all these people coming up saying, we don't agree with it because it's a sexual preference. No, it's not. It's coming to peace with who you are. It's feeling like you can walk into the room and somebody's not gonna huddle in a corner and talk about you and make you feel less. Or like my friend that came out here, when he walks down the street, it's not okay for somebody to make these slurs, these derogatory remarks about him, and he's done nothing to them. But this makes it okay. It actually does, because the town supports that, well, you know what? We don't agree with you and your sexual preference, so you kind of don't count, no matter how much work you do, no matter how many people you affect.
Anyone else?
Russell Fletcher, address on record. Everybody already knows my AKAs. You know, very rarely does a person of my generation get to see such history made. People in the 60s and the 70s, they got to see Anita Bryant and Harvey Milk duke it out. And we see who won on that one. Yeah, you know, Harvey Milk and Dan White, or Harvey Milk and Mira Marconi had to take bullets to the head from Dan White, but, you know, still, we still had the fight, and, you know, a lot of history was made. And as I've gone to these council meetings and gone back involved in politics and stuff, and seen the national record and reputation of what is happening here, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road, 50 years down the road, if I'm lucky enough to live that long, I'll be sitting on a porch, an old man, and I'll be saying, yeah, I was there. I remember those fights. I remember those people jumping up and taking a stand. I remember those 3 council members who I called my friends and my adopted family, and, you know, I think, you know, they were wrong, but, you know, they did what they thought was right. But I really want to thank you from a political point of view and a historical point of view. That this is a great moment in history that is just unfolding. And eventually it'll right itself. I mean, you know, look what happened with San Francisco. It took a few deaths, but, you know, sometimes great movements take lives. And unfortunately, those lives also include suicide. And eventually, you know, the old guard will die out like it did in San Francisco, and the new guard will take over, and you guys will be sitting back here while people of my generation, people who are slightly older, will be probably approving proclamations like this and finally moving the city forward. But the coolest part is that I'll be telling my children, well, probably not my children, but other people's children and other people's grandchildren, that I was there. And that I knew these people personally. And that's not just some story in the New York Times that happened to show up on page 821 in 2013. But that was a real moment. And I want to really thank you for that. I always wanted to be a part of history. And now I am. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Carlos Gomez. My address is on record. And thank you for giving us the time to speak. I appreciate that. That clock I never really agreed with. I think that it kind of shuts really what you need to say down. So thank you for not keeping the clock up. I vowed anger out of my life a long time ago, and some people might disagree with that right now, but I'll speak to you from the bottom of my heart instead. It's very hard, again, to sit here and, like the gentleman before me just said, see this history happen, you know? You might not be around to see the benefits or the consequences of this history. Your sons, your daughters, your grandkids might. The majority, if not all, of the LGBT community is here now feeling those effects. They live it day in and day out. Just like you all have jobs, we all have jobs. Just like you all have families, we all have families. It's very interesting for me to hear the gender issue and the religious issue being debated here. I think deep down, we all know that this is a human rights issue. Everyone deserves the right to feel safe in their communities. And because of a lot of things that are going on right now, due to your actions, perhaps, people don't feel safe. I think for me to sit here and hear that there is a recommendation for a citizens committee to deal and to figure out how to deal with dead dogs and shelter for dead dogs that you all have put on the agenda, but yet you won't put a proclamation for people, and the community says a lot. Your worth that you're given to dogs at this moment, from what I understand, is greater than what you're given to your constituents. And that is one of the most horrific things I have ever witnessed in my life. I think that what is going on here is very clear. There are 3 seats that were rearranged. Now, any vote that comes through is going to be 3-2 at best. I think everybody sees that. I think you guys know it. And I think the rest of the community knows it. When you monopolize a democratic process that way, my friends, that's not called democracy, that's called corruption. That's not called patriotism, that's called tyranny. I urge you to turn around and see the 3 flags behind you and honor them for the correct and righteous process that they all have democratically put for us to follow. Upholding the Constitution perhaps should be the #1 and absolute goal here. Unfortunately, I see that it's not. Don't forget that communication is 70% nonverbal, and I think all of us have witnessed here today how one of y'all is being told how to vote. Let's not name names. I think that really the tragedy here is that pride is getting in the way of progress. I think that pride for what others might think of you is preventing you from actually doing the right thing that you all know deep down in your hearts is the right thing to do. I'd like to leave you with those words, and hopefully you can process them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mama don't want
No, I want to know where my grandson is. Anyone else? And we will close oral communication, come back to other matters. Council,
to. Gosh,
look, they don't want to hear our side, I guess.
I guess not. We got the courthouse open on the 7th, right, 11 a.m. We got, gosh. But there was a couple things I want to know if we want to put them on I'd like to put them on the consent calendar for one of the upcoming agendas. One of them is I want to look at the criterion for Wall of Fame.
Why don't you just get the criteria and look at it?
Well, because I want to talk about modifying it. Although I can't talk about it until we put it on the
Not
agenda.
what you said.
Huh?
That's not what you said. That's not what you said. You said you want to look at it.
Well, I wanted to look at for some potential modification. So I want to put that on the agenda, you can put it on the consent calendar item if you want, it's not a super critical thing. And I also want to put the possibility of putting a subcommittee for the Charter Review Committee, to deal with the issue of pension reform. Because it sounds like, they're not gonna do it, so.
I guess my comment would be wait for the charter committee to forward that.
What's that?
You're responding to their action?
Yeah.
I would, well, suggestion would be wait for that to come from them.
Well, aren't we gonna have a tight schedule here?
I know that they're meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing that issue.
Okay, well, do me a favor, put it on the agenda, and if it becomes moot, then we won't have to worry about it, or we can decide not to, but either way, I want it on the agenda to discuss whether or not we need to discuss it. And other than what's probably already been said, October 17th, Family Crisis Center, across the street, First Friday Coffee, Family Crisis Center, and gosh, I wish I'd have brought my calendar of all the things that are coming up, but there's a lot of them.
Cracking. Board. You got the floor.
I want to say something, but I'm not going to.
I would. Do it.
He said he'd like to say something, but he may not say it. I'm not mad. I'm in trouble with my mom again.
There you did it.
Damn.
My mom's gonna be here next month, so I'm gonna get mine. David.
I'm good.
I think what you wanted to say was some of the words that were spoken towards us tonight are spoken constantly about religion. I don't think religion has one time been mentioned by a council member up here. I think it's wonderful that you have your opinions, we have our opinions, but you all come up and you want to debate your opinions with hatefulness in your hearts. And that's not how any of us have ever treated you. A proclamation is what you're upset about. Bye, Barry. Bye, Barry. He's leaving. I was just saying goodbye.
No.
Oral communication's
Speaking
over.
with me.
This
It's
is
over.
my turn.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
But you're not going to talk.
I'm listening.
Anywho,
down.
on all the debates through all of this, your side has been extremely hateful, and then you expect us to embrace that. That's not what it's about. The proclamation tonight, as far as coming out, I feel sorry for you folks if you think that's really what makes you a person. You're right. Connie, you said it best. You're all who you are. Go out and be a part of the community. Everybody likes you being in part of the community. Stop all this separatism that goes on because of gay pride or the coming out. You're better than what you're portraying yourselves right here. That's all I got to say. You can sit down now, Barry.
I'll listen to the rest.
We're done. I was the last.
Anything else?
Mr. Lawless, you have anything?
Just a couple of things. Again, the Charter Review Committee will be meeting tomorrow evening. The Zalad House Museum Rib Cook-Off is on Saturday at 11 a.m., and your directors have a team participating in that. Congratulations to Mrs. Hildreth on her winning recipe for that. She did. Yep.
Is that a cookie recipe?
Did I get any of those? Did we get any of those?
With special surprises?
In close second was Mr. Dunlap and Chief Irish. So.
First loser.
So your management team will be participating in that on Saturday. Relay for Life event, and then obviously the courthouse. So.
That's right. Relay for Life.
Very good.